many of our students and educators and administrators in this community are affected by. And we're going to ask Sherelle Brown, who was one of the persons involved in the recent sit-in at the City Council, protesting these injustices as well as other things, to just elaborate for a moment from her perspective.
Well, on campus, when doing this work, canvassing and talking to different students about the police department and the grievances and complaints going on, you have students who have lost their faith in the accountability of the police department. You have officers who seem to walk around with an air of impunity, who seem to live above the very law that they claim that they're enforcing. It just so happens in class today we were having a discussion about this very issue, and one of the young men said he shadowed a police officer in the police department, and he remembered one incident where the police officer pulled over a young man and began to harass him. He told him that his car smelled like marijuana, and then dragged him out of the car and slammed him on the trunk. The young man himself said the car didn't smell like marijuana. And he later overheard the officer talking to another officer who asked him to pull over that young man because he particularly didn't like him, because earlier that week that young man had gave him some kind of lip. So really this was just a mechanism to harass a young man. And when asked, we got several different testimonies like this about injustices with the students. And when asked, why don't you do a report or say something about it? And the general response is, what good would it do? And that's sad, because what you have is, you have fear instilled in the community. You have a community that is not afraid. A fearful community is not a protected community. It is not a served community. When the mechanism at hand seems to be very ineffective in bringing about real justice, why would anyone go and complain to the police department? When you have good officers railroaded out of the departments and students criminalized, what does this say to the community, and what does this say to our students? It says that there are unjust consequences for standing against corruption. We're sending the wrong message. We need to have an independent investigation from a third party in Greensboro to investigate some of these injustices, because the mechanism as it stands hasn't proved very effective.
Now we segue into having got a context, and others of you certainly could offer a context of your own in terms of what you feel about the things that are transpiring in our community. And we're going to ask that Reverend Nelson Johnson come speak to the impact of that meeting on those of us who were part of that trip, representing the concerns here in Greensboro.
Thank you. I want to paraphrase a very familiar statement, and that is that it takes a whole village to clean up a police department. And we're going to have to do that together. We arrived in Washington on about 7 o'clock. We were met at Lincoln Temple by the pastor there. We had breakfast, and we went over to the Justice Department. We were astounded that 15 representatives of the Justice Department, not just 15 people from the same department, but 15 people from different areas with different specialties, one of whom is here tonight. We took these documents, 60 specific grievances, supported by over 600 pages of material. That's what we took. And we sat down with the representatives who said that they were just glad to see us. And we felt very welcomed. It was a little different feeling from the meetings that we've had with our city leaders. They wanted to know what our concerns were. And we set it out as best we could. And we tried to help them understand that there was a very negative impact on the community. If you trace this, there was a group, and when a group is not liked, you're still supposed to treat them right. You don't treat them unequal when it comes to the law. Well, you got a group here called the Latin Kings that were arrested over and over again and harassed. And an officer finally said that we don't think this is good. and made a mild complaint about it. And he also complained about derogatory statements about Latinos. He became a target, A.J. Blake. And they just hounded him. And as a matter of fact, they said he was the leader of the gang. It had no relationship to reality, and just rolled him out of the department. And so we said that there are thousands of people who don't even bother to report to the police department anymore because they have lost confidence in the professional standards division, because it actually protects a certain number of people. And we know this now because, as Reverend Brown said, it is written and it's also seen. And we told them about these things. That's what we did while we were there. Well, we went for about an hour sharing information. And then some of us felt that let's not presume on their time. And we said that. I said those very words. And they said, no, we have questions we want to ask. And we stayed there for another hour discussing the questions that they raised. And we believe that they will find merits in our complaint. They asked us for some details. We set up arrangements to be in touch with each other. And we're going to continue to work on this together.
We've heard from many of the persons that attended and participated in the D.C. trip. And so we want to open this time of dialogue to others who may have some input and some perspectives that will help this cause be advanced further.
I'm convinced that you can't have this stuff going on and be a human relations commissioner and not want to try to find a way to make the bridge, the connection between a commission that's supposed to represent all of us and the people who are here tonight. Okay. It seemed to me that when I read about you, it was clear that what the leadership in the department wanted to do was cut off the head of an alternative leadership, okay? And when they came to you and said, we want to conduct a psychological evaluation on you, was that legal? Did you have recourse?
Well, first of all, one of the reasons that I help the officers, the first main reason is that it's my job and it's the right thing to do. And so I had to do what was told of me by my superiors at a certain point. Afterwards, or after this situation, there is legal recourse, but I could not refuse what they were telling me that I had to do. What happened was, and only through the grace of God, I understood prior to them having me have to submit to the psychological evaluation, I understood what they were trying to do. And what I did is I went and had myself referred for a psychological evaluation to a PhD prior to them being able to force me to do it. And then when they forced me to do it, I was already seeing someone, and that caused issues because you have two different PhDs with different assessments, because I felt like his assessment, the city doctor's assessment, was going to be that I was unfit for duty, and then I was going to be terminated, and these officers that I had assisted would then be following a crazy captain. And so, again, through the grace of God, I understood that I had myself referred, and I was actually cleared by one PhD. And once they found out that I was seeing that PhD, then they tried to force me to submit my personal records, doctor's records from the PhD that I had been referred to. They tried to force me to submit my records to the city doctor. And I opposed them on that. And they wrote me a document saying that I had no choice but to do that. And then a lawyer wrote them a letter saying that I did have a choice. At that point, they backed off. The city doctor backed off, and they sent me to another psychologist, a second PhD. I went to the second PhD. I saw him for an hour the first day. When I saw him, he spoke to me for an hour. He said, can you tell me something? I said, yes, sir. He said, can you tell me why you're here? Because I can't understand why you're here based on what the information they've given me. So we talked a little longer. He said, hey, he said, are you getting paid right?